What the hell's going on with the grains? Why are the grains higher? Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the Comstock channel. I am Eric Relph with Comstock Investments. I'm a broker, insurance agent, market analyst with Comstock. I'm going to talk primarily today about what's going on in the grain markets. I've had a lot of questions. What got into the grains? What the hell's going on with the grains? Why are the grains higher? It's just been this repeated drum getting beat. So I thought we'd focus in on really a plethora of points that have been impacting the markets over the last 2 days, really over the last 24 hours as I record this, but over the last two sessions as we head into the 4th of July weekend. First of all, 4th of July is often a pivot point for the grain markets. Normally, we've had some good marketing opportunities and some weather premium pumped into the markets at this point in the year. And if you haven't made any sales by the 4th of July, you're probably feeling like you're running behind. This year, we've had zero weather premium put in. The corn market specifically has been beat down of late. December making new contract lows a couple of times over the last week and really blowing out the previous contract low at 428 like it wasn't even there. So now what's causing this turnaround over the last 24 hours is really multifaceted. And we're going to take a look at some of the things that are making that happen. One thing that many have seen and heard about is that Trump announced a trade deal with Vietnam that would let U.S. goods into Vietnam duty-free, where any Vietnamese products coming into the U.S. would have a 20% tariff. That really didn't have as big an impact as a lot of the other influences, but that was definitely something that weighed in on this deal. The big one in my mind is that Trump is set to visit Des Moines this evening at 7:30 p.m. So as many of you are watching this, that may have already taken place or be getting ready to take place. But he is supposed to be speaking in Des Moines at the Iowa State Fairgrounds. And the anticipation from the trade is that we're going to see some announcement regarding ag products, particularly the expectation is that it's going to involve China and or India, which would be a big deal as we move into the next phase of these trade agreements, which the deadline was July 9th, but it seems that some of these deals are already being done. That's brought some euphoria into the market at a time when we expect a pivot. So without all that weather premium in and the prices being beat down like they were, if we're going to see that pivot, then it is going to be to higher prices. Normally, weather is the driver when we see that big shift at this time of year. And really, until now, the weather's been completely benign. There's been no adverse impacts by what we've seen. If anything, some areas are a little too wet. But in Chicago, they view it as rain makes grain and life goes on. But I wanted to pull up the most recent GFS precip model and take a look at kind of the shift that Matthew talked about in his report this week to our Comstock Report subscribers. And that is that while there are still rains in the forecast, they're of more of a scattered nature and not a well put together sweeping rain system that we're going to see moving across the country. So as I go through the hours here, we're starting this morning, going through the next 10 days. You can see there are some blips in the radar, but they're spread out, they're scattered, they pop up, they go away. This right here is about the best formed system that we've seen out of this entire forecast model, but then it breaks up within a few hours and doesn't really sweep across to the east like we would expect to see some of these systems do. And so while we do still have rains, they are more scattered, they are going to be less impactful, and at the same time, we're going to see temperatures rise in a lot of the Corn Belt. We do have a high-pressure ridging system that's been set up over Wyoming, Montana, western Colorado that is expected to migrate a little bit to the east as the days progress here, and that's probably causing some of these systems to be a lot more broken than what we've been seeing of late. But as I thumb through here, you can see there's just no big rainfall event that's going to have an impact on the Corn Belt. So a lot of things can influence this. That's some of the stuff that we're seeing right now. And which one you're going to hang your hat on, I mean, that's going to be dealer's choice. But the significance of this is there has been a catalyst to see the kind of market reaction that we've seen over the last two sessions. And the question is going to be, will the weather trend more threatening, or are we going to see a shift back to a maybe cooler, more wet forecast moving over the next 3 days before we come to the Sunday night reopen? One other notable point that I kind of forgot to mention a little bit ago is we've had some really impressive export sales. The weekly numbers have been on pace with what you would expect to see on a regular basis, but this week we saw some significant numbers in the soybean oil and soybean meal. And then to add to that, we saw significant daily flash sales 150,000 metric tons of corn, 226,000 tons of beans, and 195,000 tons of meal, all sold to unknown destinations. There is a little bit of expectation that that is to China. And if that is the case, which oftentimes it is when it's unknown destinations, then there's some hope that maybe that's a little front running, some early purchasing to buy some good faith with whatever kind of a trade deal we're expecting to hear about later today when Trump speaks in Des Moines. So what's been happening to the market as a result of all of this? Since making a new low for the move and a new contract low on Tuesday, corn has now rebounded from a low of 416.5 to current trade of 438.75. We've had a high so far today of 442.25. So seeing a 25-cent rally in just a couple of sessions. Soybeans, similar type action. When you look at the November contract, up 8.5 today. They've been up actually for 5 consecutive sessions and taking out some short-term resistance yesterday on the big move higher. Now we're going to be targeting some highs back up into the 1075 to 1080 range as next level resistance. So really good looking chart action here. And most of this has taken place over the last 2 days as a result of all of these influencing factors that we've already discussed. So like I said, now the big question is going to be, what does the weather forecast do over this 3-day holiday weekend? And what is the trader sentiment as we come out of the weekend into the Sunday night trade? Right now, everything looks fairly well supported, and the forecast models are going to dictate how we trade it after the reopen Sunday night. So that's what we're going to be focused on. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. And if you haven't already, go to our website and sign up for a free trial of the Comstock Report, where we cover information like this every single day, twice a day. And we also have a pre-opening report that comes out on Sunday, so you kind of know what to expect based on the weather and geopolitical influences that have taken place over the weekend. So that'll do it for this episode. Thanks for joining me on the Comstock channel, and everyone have a happy 4th of July. We'll see you next week.
Futures trading involves risk. The risk of loss in trading futures and/or options is substantial, and each investor and/or trader must consider whether this is a suitable investment. Past performance is not indicative of future results.